First Star Wars movie in 7 years. Since Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker in 2019, was this a triumphant return for Star Wars?
How you posing the question like that is going to make me sound like a Debbie Downer. You know what you're doing. And
I do.
no, it was not a triumphant return. It was not.
Satisfying? Satisfying?
It was satisfying. Yeah, if we want to be nice, it's like, hey, Ricky Flex, did you enjoy your time at the movies? I did. I did. And was it because of tempered expectations, as you eloquently said at the beginning of the pod? Maybe. Was it because I was with family and friends and we were just having fun? We hit up Applebee's, had drinks before and apps, and got drinks and drinks and dinner after. Maybe the vibes were high just from that. And also, this was just a fun adventure movie. This is exactly what we thought it was. And there wasn't a lot of story. Was there a lot of pacing issues? Was there scope issues for a Star Wars return to the theatrical screen? Yes, absolutely. But this is exactly what your synopsis was. What was the synopsis? Embark on an exciting new Star Wars adventure. Maybe a couple adventures in there, and maybe a few episodes of The Mandalorian were in here, and maybe not the peak episodes of The Mandalorian, which also is a problem. But overall, did I enjoy my time at the movies? Yes. Was it a triumphant return for Star Wars? Absolutely not.
And that's something we have to talk about because this is the first movie in 7 years. Kathleen Kennedy out, Dave Filoni in. Dave Filoni, we have to talk about his insertion literally into this movie, not
James
once,
Gunnian.
but twice. Very James Gunnian. I would say, is he stepping over the line? Also, I'll hint at the conversation now. Absolutely stepping over the line. Absolutely.
Let's just talk about it right now.
You are just, yeah, I know. You are just announced as the new head of like Lucasfilm. And here comes part of what you were instrumental in developing with Mandalorian and Grogu alongside Jon Favreau. And the first project where you are releasing in theaters under your like new regime, and you put yourself in the movie not once but twice, and you put yourself like in as a pilot in the movie, and you give he's trying to have his like Stan Lee moment. He has his, notable, I don't want to say iconic, but his famous cowboy hat on. He literally put himself in the movie. I thought that was wow. Like that says you're a little bit too much. He's already known as a fanboy, but that's just like you have dreamt this experience, and do we have to now expect this in every Star Wars movie going forward?
It's like, dude, you're already head of the creative side of Star Wars. Like you're doing every fanboy's dream. Like you appearing in the movie, the first movie live action that you're like overseeing is a wild overstep of power. A wild overstep of power. And
I would do this guy. I would do that. I would do that.
I don't think I would. I think that's just the business side of me versus you. I don't know. I would like to think I wouldn't do that. George Lucas, for God's sakes, didn't do it until Revenge of the Sith, and he was blue. You couldn't even recognize him. So, for God's sakes, if George Lucas, the actual creator of this universe, didn't do it, for God's sakes, Dave Filoni, what gives you the right to do it in your first freaking movie?
Gives off major fanboy. But also, when he is in the movie the first time, and he's sitting like at like the hub of these like bounty hunters that work for the New Republic, he's like taking a sip of something, but he's like using his side eye. It almost felt like he was winking at the camera in real time. It felt like he's like, "Oh, this is pretty awesome, isn't it?" Like it felt like that. What he should have done, the smart thing to do, and actually, this is what I would have done. You go as one of the stormtroopers. Simple. There's so many stories of, Daniel Craig. I think it was Tom Hardy. It's like all these like surprise guest appearances in Star Wars. You want to be a part of it, but you don't want to take away from the stars of the movie, whether it be newcomers or returners. You make yourself a stormtrooper and give yourself a line, and no one knows you're even there. And then you see their name pop up in the credits, and it's like, oh shit, that's great. That's the approach you got to
do. That is what you do. You know what? That's what I would do. That's what you do right there. You focus on the movie because that's what matters. That you should be talking about the movie. You should be talking about Mando, Grogu, Rada, whoever, the story or lack thereof. We can get to that. But why are we talking about Dave Filoni being in this goddamn movie not once but twice?
It's the first thing we talked about.
It's the first thing with the lack of characters in this movie and people in this movie, humans in this movie Like, it's so obvious. It's so you
Yeah.
can't, like, say, "Oh, like, here's a little cameo." No, he's one of the few humans in this movie we're gonna fricking remember.
This guy knew what he was doing. Whenever a human came on screen during this movie, I literally was a little bit in shock because it's like, wow, human. And then it's like the Sigourney Weaver, just pasty white skin, just boom, right there. And then Dave Filoni, he shows up. It's like, oh, it's the only other human in the movie. That guy must be like somebody, you
Yeah,
know?
a
But
human without a
I
helmet on.
and I do want to talk about my initial reactions because I feel similarly to you that this is exactly what we thought it was going to be. That it's going to feel like an extension of the show. Do I see a sequel for this? I see more of it as like expect another season of the Mandalorian TV show because this felt like not just one extended episode, it felt like a Mandalorian part 1 episode into a part 2 and even going into like another part 3 or just another separate adventure for Mandalorian and Grogu. And it felt like they were just smashed together because after the first act of the movie, it felt like, okay, we've ended this journey, we've saved this character, we've delivered this bounty, and done a little bit extra. It felt like a Mando Grogu doing it back to back, Mando doing most of the heavy lifting, but that felt like one episode. And I felt like, and I was like, is this the end of the movie? Because you could make this like a this is that's like an 80-minute Star Wars special that you just had. And then it's like, oh, the decisions that Mando makes from that one episode then lead into part 2. And here's another 35, 40-minute episode. And then after that leads to part 3. I get it. People say like that's like 3 acts of the movie, but it just didn't really flow that way. It for some reason felt like episodes because we're so used to these adventures. It's like act 1 with one adventure, act 2 another, act 3 the third. Did you feel like that? Was the episode smashed together rather than one cohesive movie?
Yeah, they didn't do a good job playing down the rumors that they were rewriting season 4 of The Mandalorian into a movie. This
Mhm.
seems like that's exactly what it was because you could feel them go from A to B and then you get C. You could feel that in each of like the episodic elements of this movie. And I think this felt like old school TV, and that's what The Mandalorian's goal was with like that Western style, where it was just like your adventure of the week, old school TV show. And this felt like that on the big screen, and it felt very small. It felt like 4 TV episodes into a movie, right in the Star Wars world, and you could even see that by the title of the movie. It looked old school TV show adventure element, like adventure of the week that you saw on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon or whatever, right? So I think for me, you could argue a bigger problem with this is that, all right, let's say this is supposed to be season 4 into one movie. I just felt it was slow and kind of boring at times. Like the action sequences were great. The intro the opening set piece, awesome. The AT-ATs, like that was actually really good. I was nervous for that. But and like I think the action parts were the best parts of the movie. But other than that, it just this felt small and slow. And this is a 2 hour, 12-minute movie, and it felt arguably longer. It really did. And that's why, again, with the TV episodes and them being 4, you could really feel that each episode being dragged out to try to reach its runtime, and it overall dragged the movie along with it.
I agree that it kind of felt small because it's happening in a very small sector of the galaxy. It's the Outer Rim. We're talking about bounty hunters for the New Republic that aren't firmly established right now. It's talking rarely about the rise of the rise of the Empire that eventually will happen going into like episode 7, but it doesn't really include the politics of everything. That's what makes this feel much smaller, and it's more about the mission of a bounty hunter and a guy who goes the extra mile and kind of does a little bit more than what he's asked for, and it could get him into some trouble. It felt like a small story. It felt like episodic and a little like TV. It feels like Mandalorian and Grogu. And that's why it's like, is it a return to Star Wars, like a triumphant return? Well, it's not like huge storytelling, expansive storytelling. You go to a couple planets and it's really focusing on what they got to accomplish. It has a little bit of story about like the underworld, the criminal underworld of the galaxy, but it doesn't expand too much into, lore. I actually found like I know it has a lot of creatures in this movie, but the Star Wars elements, it wasn't as vast as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, like if we broke it down, and you could help me out maybe here, just off the dome. The intro like sequence, like that's one episode, and the Sigourney Weaver element of it all, and then going to Scorsese. right? And on that planet, that's one episode. Then like rescuing Rada and then getting coin. That's another episode on that planet, right? The Grogu standalone episode, which arguably would be the best if we're gonna be honest.
If you
And
were
then
like
the
at TV and you got a solo Grogu episode like that, people would go nuts. Go
yes,
nuts.
yes. So that's why I say it's arguably the best. And then them taking down the Huts. Like that's the fourth episode. You could argue this was a 4 TV episode arc, and it was very simple, right? Just adventure to adventure, and every like 40 minutes you get a new adventure, right? It just for me it didn't move the needle. It really didn't. I think the characters before we saw the movie, the characters are the same as if the movie didn't happen, except maybe Grogu, right? Grogu had some independence that that character kind of needed, but like Mando, literally the same person. Nothing has changed with the character. We only saw like 5, 6 minutes of Pedro Pascal without the helmet on. And maybe you needed that in a theatrical, like charming the audience sort of way on the big screen. You might have needed that in this movie, but that character is the same. The best part was when Pedro Pascal was not in the suit. And I think that's a huge problem. So this is very simple. This was an adventure episode TV arc, similar, but it just felt small, didn't move the needle. And I think our protagonist was lacking in this movie.
And how the characters, you know, were portrayed in this movie, it didn't push them forward. It was basically what you learned about these characters and saw them grow seasons 1 through 3. Those exact characters that we left off with, boom, here you go. But we're gonna kind of repeat some of the things that you've seen in the show in terms of, okay, how are we gonna go through the relationship of Din and Grogu? Well, it's still father son, and someone's telling Din that you have to get ready for one day Grogu's going to have to be more independent, and Grogu's got to get ready to, grow up and live a life without Din. But it ends with them together, him on top of his lap, ready for the next adventure. There was nothing new in terms of pushing the characters. And that's what it makes me think this was just an opportunity. Okay, let's bring Star Wars back to the big screen. I don't know. This is also why, by the way the characters went, this is setting up for a season 4, of the show. But these characters are obviously extremely popular that it'll do well in the box office. And it's been 7 years since a Star Wars film. Let's put something out there and just get people excited, specifically young people excited about Star Wars on the big screen. That's what it kind of felt like to me. And I think they did a great job because Mando, just seeing him on the screen again, just that opening scene was electrifying.
Mm.
It was so sick. The darkness into the light, the fire, him breaking through, and then, slinging people, sniping people down, the AT-ATs of it all and everything. That opening scene, a little bit of force use by Grogu. That opening scene was like, this is such a cool character. And he looks so goddamn cool. When you just see him on the screen, you're like, we're back. Star Wars is back. So to me, and there's so many elements that just appeal to kids, but I think it was worthwhile in terms of getting people to go watch Star Wars in theaters again. It's not something that's like a long-term solution, and I will see what happens from here and what Filoni and company have in store for the rest of Star Wars. But for me, it's just we knew the characters, we see the characters, they look awesome, they do exactly what we want, but now let's see the next thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just think let's think back to the Mandalorian, the TV show for a second. Season 1, 2 were great. You're seeing that relationship build between the two of them. And then you have Book of Boba Fett. And then like Grogu, he's not going to be a Jedi. He's going to be the apprentice to the Mandalorian, Din, right? So season 3 was tackling a lot of the Mandalorian lore, right? On Mandalore and whatnot. And that obviously did not go well. So this was like, hey, let's get your excitement back to who you love. These two characters, them doing adventures together. And that's all well and good. And I think you're right. Attracting a younger audience, Dave Filoni, that's literally his bread and butter. Clone Wars, Rebels, animated, like younger audiences, he just grabs, right? So, and Grogu obviously is that as well. So that's great. So this movie eliminates that like Mandalorian lore fluff that a lot of people didn't like, and you don't need to know going into this movie, and you get back to its roots with the two characters, right? For me, the big problem with the big screen is that this just doesn't feel important to the universe, so it's not worthy
You're
of a
right.
movie. And then I think that is that's just what it comes down to. And I think this will drive enough interest to be like, All right, we're back on the Mandalorian and Grogu. And what you do is you change the name of the TV show to The Mandalorian and Grogu season 4. And then now we're back on the TV side of it. And then this is just a TV universe. And that's totally fine. And I think I wanted to mention the box office before because let's just say this makes 100 million this weekend, 4-day weekend domestically. That is below Solo, which made 103 million when it came out in 2018 Memorial Day weekend. So that is not enough, even money wise, to say this is a theatrical universe. Solo wasn't enough. This won't be enough. So for me, that's just where we are at the moment with this subsector of the Star Wars universe. And after seeing this movie,
It also feels like maybe a little bit of a test drive for, okay, popular TV character can't make it on the big screen, you know? And maybe we've heard about Filoni potentially making an Ahsoka with Mando, like a Filoni verse type of film. This is maybe test driving it. It's kind of teasing what could happen afterwards in a way. But to me, this is just a huge, promo for season 4 of The Mandalorian. But it's also like what comes after this. We got Sean Levy's Starfighter. Like Sean Levy is the guy who's made a lot of popular kids like projects as well, right? Not like Deadpool and Wolverine wouldn't exactly call it kids project, but it's Marvel. He's obviously been involved with Stranger Things. He had the Adam Project. He's done like a lot of kid stuff. Should we expect something similar to his movie, especially because it's starring a kid alongside of Ryan Gosling? I'm very fascinated to see how they go, like what direction they go. I can understand how Star Wars fans might be irked by this movie and knowing that Filoni's at the helm and knowing what's ahead specifically with, Starfighter. I think that it's kind of leaving fans little cautious and a little bit
Hmm.
scared, which I kind of get because you want to get back to like the vast world of Star Wars. You want to get into the political elements of it, along with the action. You want to see more Jedis. We'll see because that doesn't seem like it's on the table right now. There's other things that we could just go back to the movie now. I want to talk about some of the Star Wars elements that were in this movie. Uh, the Ludwig Göransson score. I want to talk about this. The music of the movie. So Ludwig Göransson, multiple time Oscar winner. He's doing also the music for the Odyssey for Christopher Nolan coming up. He did Oppenheimer. He did Black Panther. He's done so much. He's like a young
Sinners.
goat. So when I heard the songs or the music, the score in this movie, I was taken back because the music in this movie it has the Mandalorian theme woven throughout, but it's not just the one you hear in the TV show. It's also mixing in a lot of like electronic music, synth music. And there's a segment of the movie where they go to a city, Mando and Grogu, trying to look for Rod of the Hutt. And the music kind of matches the Blade Runner vibe. But I wanted to get your thoughts on it because I thought it was Ludwig Göransson kind of feeling himself. And he's like, I'm going to take the traditional Star Wars music, what you know from Mando as well, and I'm going to like give a little twist for the big screen. What did you think about Göransson's score?
I think he was feeling himself a little bit. I think he knows what this movie is, and he knows like, hey, like everyone knows this score, so I could put a spin on it, and try to make it sound more cinematic, right? You hear the big orchestral sound related to this, right? More so than kind of like the TV series Western influenced score, right? This is still like obviously seeds of that. Obviously, it's the core of it. But here, like you have the bigger orchestra and whatnot. You can feel the scale of it, right? It's just like when we get to that city, and it's like the second adventure. It is so techno, and I felt so odd when it's so quiet, and then you hear "Doons, doons, 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 doons," and I'm like, "We're just walking. We're like, what are we doing? Like, we're just about to go talk to Martin Scorsese's four-armed person. Like that just felt weird. So I'm not saying I hate it as in like the sound. It just felt misplaced at times, and I just thought like, yeah, maybe you're right. Like maybe he was feeling himself, or he was just trying something different because everyone already knows the score, so he had to do something.
I thought he was feeling himself a little too much with the music. I thought it was experimental, and it kind of reminded me my parallel for this. It's like when you watch episode 8 and you see Ryan Johnson messing with the force a little bit. And he's kind of you like
But
may
not as
is he
important.
stepping he's like, is he overstepping a little bit? And I'm looking at Goransson's score and I hear like even in the credits and I see kids breaking it down in the middle of, in front of the movie theater, in front of the screen. And I'm like, did he go over the line? Because that is iconic, Star Wars music. I know Goranson is the guy responsible for the Mando score in the first place. So he kind of has the right to do it. But to me, it didn't sound even that good. I don't know about you. I thought, and I listened to a lot of like electronic music. That to me, it was a little clunky. I respect it because I thought it was cool that you did it with like the Blade Runner type of setting, but like it had so many different traditional Star Wars Mando score. It was like kind of what the movie was too, because the movie felt like 5 different movies mashed into one. And then the music also I found myself thinking this would fit like 3 different types of movies smashed into one as well. I just thought he was feeling himself just like Ryan Johnson was a bit.
Just a bit. Like you still hear like the guitar and like when Mandalorian is on the screen, the Western guitar riff.
Big drums.
And then you could hear when Grogu's on, like kind of the choir, softer element, wet like of it all, right? You could still hear that, but he clearly was just trying to evolve the score to the big screen, but also try to like kind of fit the setting of like where you were. So like when you're on that, like a Blade Runner planet, he was trying to fit that. And did it work? I don't think so. It's not that the score was bad. I took it for a spin late last night after the movie just to be like, hey, do I like this score? And you know what I did? I immediately looked up Supergirl trailer song on this, and I listened to that right afterwards, and that still bangs because we saw that
So
trailer before this movie. So yeah, you're right. Like maybe he was feeling himself too much. I don't think it was bad. I thought it was misplaced.
And we'll go into spoilers. I do want to just bring up, I guess, an idea that I had mentioned previously, but the idea that this movie felt like also a bunch of other movies at the same, like I felt like I was watching 20 minutes of the movie. I felt like, okay, I'm in Blade Runner right now. And then I would watch another scene and I'm like, I feel like I'm watching Thor Ragnarok now. And it would just bounce from like, I guess, genre to genre within the Star Wars movie. And at times like obviously they have elements that will quickly remind you you're in the Star Wars world. Like you have Grogu pick up a stick and use it as a walking stick, like, but it's a twig, so it's kind of hilarious, just like Yoda would, which is awesome. And then there's other parts where you see an AT-AT. It's like, oh yeah, we're in a Star Wars movie. But I want to give you a list of types of movies that I felt while watching this. I already said it, Blade Runner, when you go into like the criminal underworld trying to find Rada the Hutt. Thor Ragnarok / Gladiator, when Mando is fighting Rada the Hutt, but also a bunch of other creatures. And when there's like a spree of all those characters into the streets, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching Godzilla Kong now. And then you'll go to a moment where Grogu is saving Mando, who's been incapacitated, is on the verge of dying. And it's just a silent film for 20 minutes with an animatronic robot, animatronic puppet. And then there's other times where I'm watching it. This movie becomes like Minions with the Anzellans and with Grogu trying to save Mando, and they own the screen for 10 minutes. I felt like I was watching a bunch of different types of blockbuster movies smashed into one. And at times it's like literally less of a Star Wars movie because it doesn't have those classic political elements, doesn't really involve like the Empire too much or the Republic. It's more about having fun at the movie theater. Did you feel that at all? That almost other genres of movies were overtaking the Star Wars of it all?
I did not. I felt like the influences for sure, but I for sure felt Star Wars. And I think another reason why is what you were kind of bringing up with what the Anzellans, like Babu Frick, and then the
Yeah.
AT-ATs, the freaking character, and the Barbarian Pit. Those characters are the characters on the chessboard
Yeah.
of A New Hope, and they literally had the chessboard like literally on the floor in the pit. This relied on nostalgia just for Star Wars because they knew this is the Mandalorian, but this is the big screen. We need the audience that didn't see the Mandalorian to still be like, oh, like, but Star Wars fans, that just only go to the movies, they're like, oh, we still have to do Star Wars stuff. That's what I felt. So I felt like it was trying to like Dip Filoni and Fabra were like, oh, we need to make sure this is a Star Wars movie. We need to make sure people can connect with it. That's why you saw a bunch of Hutts in it, not just Rada, like a lot of others. And then they were like, Jabba the Hutt, the crime lord, Sigourney Weaver. Yes, we
Greedo?
know.
Baby Greedo?
Baby Greedo, exactly. This relied on the nostalgia.
Right, and, there I think even the movie I didn't bring up that was, like, an influence, John Wick. Like, the first scene is John Wick, but Mandalorian, but we see Mando kind of go crazy like that before, so it's
Yeah.
like you just say it's Mando, but that to me was the best scene, and action-wise and favorite moments, that's number 1, but I thought this movie I thought it was paced very badly. I thought it was like I wrote in my notes, "This might be the worst paced movie I've ever seen." In terms of action, then it's like dialogue exposition heavy, and then it's more action, dialogue exposition heavy, and then it's incapacitated incapacitated Mando. Grogu takes the screen, and the whole movie just comes to a screeching halt. And then it's okay, another action scene. Then we add in another aerial action scene that's unnecessary for like the last 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of the movie. I just thought it was terribly like paced. But the action scenes when they came, they hit for the most part, man. And people will complain about the CGI. Having Rada in broad daylight is just a terrible decision, just especially at the end. It
All the
reminds me
huts.
it reminds me of when they remastered, episode 4 and you have like Jabba the Hutt showing up and it just looks it's crazy to have him in daylight like that, exposed for all this criticism. It felt like we were back to that moment. But the opening scene, amazing, right? AT-AT going outside, falling off the cliff. I'm like, okay, that's pretty freaking awesome. Rada the Hutt, jacked Rada the Hutt. We'll talk about him in a sec.
Jacked.
Him versus I should honestly say ripped. He's ripped in this movie, like Trapzilla. He's got like a little bit of a core going on, a little bit of some ab work, biceps that are just bursting out of his green skin. He looked awesome. He looked awesome. I laughed every time I looked at the screen. I'm like, Rada the Hutt looks so sick in
And the
this
last time
movie.
you saw him, if you're a Clone Wars Rebels fan, was when he was a baby. So this was a
Yeah.
complete like 180. Like no one expected this.
And then the other action scene that I was like blown away by and I thought was awesome was Mando versus the Mega Droids. The dual Mega Droids in the third act of the movie, and you have Grogu going inside the Mega Droid to kind of help out Mando do something during the battle. And I loved how like those droids were on steroids. That was like something you hadn't seen in Star Wars before. Usually droids are so easy to take out. You just get a piece of one and it's going to fall into 100 pieces like it's a blown up Lego set type of thing. This one, it's like it takes a lot to take down these mega
I
droids. And we've kind of
appreciate
seen that.
that.
I thought that was cool element that they added. So the action to me highlight along with the cuteness of Baby Grogu.
I was, I think you hit the nail on the head on the good sequences. One I was a little disappointed in was the pit, the gladiator pit. It was a little quick and rushed, and then bad CGI when it wasn't just Rada and Din, and it was against the other monsters. I was disappointed in that. But we talked about influences from other movies. They definitely took from Thor Ragnarok there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's another example of
The
like
two big
influence.
hitters going against each other.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I just wanted to mention that.
Let's talk about Rada the Hutt. Jeremy Allen White. So first
So Jack.
off, when the so jacked, dude, so
That's not
jacked
fair
in
though.
this movie. I just could not, because there's no humans in this. It's just like that guy is jacked. Like it's like he stands out from all the other creatures. Like he is. What is it called? What do the kids call it? He's looks maxing. Is he looks maxing in
Oh,
this movie?
I
Is that what it's called?
I don't think he is in this movie.
Dude, I think he is. Like, there's times where he is like flexing a little bit. He's like the zoom in shots. These traps are just massive. But Jeremy Allen White as Rod of the Hutt, I did not know he was going to be in this much of the movie. I thought it was going to be like a cameo, and I thought it was going to be like an extended cameo. We'd see him at the Drive-In Pod Awards next year. But I think having him in here is interesting because you usually think of the Hutts, you think of these intimidating gangsters that run the underworld of Star Wars, and they
That can't
have this,
move.
but they have also like a classic storyline where it's like this gangster family, a son who's supposed to like inherit like the family business and doesn't want to. I'm like, that's a whole nother movie, that
They
a
tried to
genre.
humanize a hut, dude.
And I see why they did it. It was interesting because people are just like, you can't change the Hutts. They're evil. They're gangsters. Like they can't be trusted. But to have one that doesn't want to follow in the footsteps of his father, Jabba, I thought it was kind of fitting for like a kids type of movie. So I was okay with it. And the performance I kind of want to talk about. How do you think Jeremy Allen White did?
Listen, I have defended Jeremy Allen White through a lot, and
Oh no.
I will continue to defend him going forward. But dare I say, this is the worst performance he's ever done. I hated the voice. I hated it. I thought it was off the entire time. Did not match. I actually was like, I don't know what they were. I think they tried to cast him as like he's a young, jacked human. Like, so then let's just give him Rod of the Hut. That's honestly what I think Favreau and Filoni decided on because the voice just did not work. It really didn't.
It was an interesting performance because they obviously amplified his voice. You know, it wasn't just
It didn't
Jeremy
sound
Allen
like
White,
Jeremy Allen White or Carmi for the most part.
but every 10th word did sound like Jeremy Allen White. Like I'm like, wow, this is kind of transformative. Like he really like he's not Pattinson. Where if Pattinson did this, he would do something crazy. But I was like Jeremy Allen White trying to flex like I can do the voice acting game. And I would hear it and I'm like, I buy it. And then all of a sudden it sounded like Carmi suffering through depression, like for like the 10th word. And I'm just like, oh, there it is. It just wasn't consistent for me. Like, and I was like, I like how if it was Jeremy Allen White and I couldn't tell it was Jeremy Allen White, to me, that's like a good performance. But the fact that every couple words I could tell, oh, that's Jeremy Allen White. There it is right there. That's not Rod of the Hut.
I
I don't know. I just thought
I
to me it
think
was a little inconsistent, but still kind of transformative.
I think it's just crazy. Like if you look at the character in this movie, there was more to this character than there was with the main character
Like in terms of development, yes.
by a lot. Like it's insane. Like
He's the only character that had development in this movie.
Like, if I wanted to do something that felt like something with character development with this protagonist while doing the Grogu independence, then this would have been maybe the time when Grogu leaves on his own. Like, build him up where he could, like, he might have to leave Mando at the end, and Mando is going to have to accept that the apprenticeship is over. Maybe do a fast forward in time. Time has passed, and Grogu is like talking or about to start talking. And then at the end of the movie, he says a word in English or something. And then it's like, oh my God, like there just wasn't anything there. And you could have done something for Din to be like a father development story. And this just wasn't that.
No.
They just didn't have anything. The fact that this Jeremy Allen White Rada had more than the main character of a Star Wars main character movie, theatrical movie, is just insane to me.
That's why I think Star Wars fans also they probably will not like this movie too much. They like the fanfare of it all, but when it comes to any nuance or sophistication, that you can't find it in this movie. It's for kids.
I
It's
think
literally
right now you're right because like I think what you said at the beginning with the Rotten Tomato score, critics are seeing what we're talking about, the 60 whatever percent on Rotten Tomatoes. But the Rotten Tomatoes audience score is at like 88%, you said? Like that is so high. And I think it's because of that kid element. And then also the element of what I said off the top, when it's just like, I enjoyed myself back in the theaters in a Star Wars movie. I did. So I think that's where it's just like, yeah, that's where the audience score gets inflated. And that's where you kind of like that's why Rotten Tomatoes is not a perfect system. It's just not.
Did you walk out saying like you had a good time? Yeah, probably. It's like an audience score. Like what's the I forgot what the metric's called. Cinema score. It's like
Oh,
that's gonna be high. People leave the theater and be like, that was fun,
yeah,
you
it got
know?
an A minus.
But it's like when you look at it, with decision making, how the characters develop, what comes with like the force and how people use it and things like that. It's just like it's not really a part of the movie at all. It's just not. It's not about that. You know. Um, Other parts of this, not so. So looking at the cast, I think there were more humans in our theater at our screening than there were on set at any point in this movie because this relied so much on puppetry. This relied so much on CGI that it was jarring to see a human in the movie. It was like shocking for a Star Wars movie to have a single human. I just thought it was crazy because our dad was talking about it. We saw it with him during that scene where they are the gladiator Thor Ragnarok type of scene between Rada and Mando. When you look down the crowd and you saw humans, you're like, oh, there's people here. You're like, holy shit. And then when Sigourney Weaver showed up, she was like a fish out of water. It was just like, wow, human. And then when she and then her performance was the ultimate just cash in a check, in my opinion. And the last scene she had, egregiously bad. Egregiously bad. They said this is the last day on set. This is Sigourney's last day. Let's just make this and wrap this up quick.
How about you go
What do
pick up the trash?
you think people are going to be upset by that? That there's no like human inclusion? Because even the Mandalorian show, I mean, you get a lot of like recognizable name like faces that show up, whether they be like Star Wars, related or just like newcomers to the
Star
franchise.
Wars.
Yeah, like Bill Burr is like someone that's like acquainted himself with like the Mando world. Uh, I don't want to talk about the other names; it doesn't matter. I can't think of them all top of my head. And I was thinking about one that just lost to Ronda
Oh,
Rousey,
Giancarlo
but
Esposito.
Giancarlo Esposito. Like, are you surprised there weren't more humans here? Do you think people are going to be upset by that? Like, not including Giancarlo. Like there was no like they understood the characters from the show, but there was no like conclusion of past things that have happened at all or mentioned at all. They were just like, this is just another adventure. Do you think that was weird?
I think it's them saying, "Hey, like, we understand season 3 wasn't good, and that was all, like, humans and all the Mandalorians and Jack Black,
Uh,
and, Lizzo, and the human part of the show didn't work. It just didn't, What parts worked were with Grogu and Mando, and they said, "F it." And it's I think it's fine for this movie. I really do. You are right. There were more people in our theater than there were like humans in our theater than there were in the movie. That is a fact. The credits, that was the shortest credits I think I've ever seen for a Star Wars
yeah.
movie. That's
Mhm.
crazy. A huge budget Star Wars movie. That was probably the shortest credits I've ever seen for a movie that's not like $1 million budget. I'm looking at you, Obsession. It was.
But if people are talking about Star Wars, like a huge part of Star Wars is like the puppetry, the animatronics. Like this is kind of a love letter for all that sector of Star Wars.
Another reason why, like, I'm fine with it. I am fine with it. I think if this movie was in a different direction, then yeah, we would have some problems. Like if we went to the depths of the dark saber and Mandalore, and it's only Din, yeah, we could talk. But I think for this, what this was with the Huts being like the half villains of this movie, and Embo, which I just found out his name after the movie because like they didn't tell us the fact that they explained
He
Jabba
didn't
the
speak.
Hutt. They explained Jabba the Hutt through dialogue, an iconic Star Wars character, and not this guy from the Clone Wars. For a theatrical movie, that again, they were explaining stuff through dialogue all the time in exposition, and they didn't explain Zeb either, is crazy.
Yeah,
Because sorry, God.
I was gonna say because Zeb is introduced at the end of Mandalorian season 3, but they don't really talk about who he is. Like, he kind of just says, "Hey, I'm Zeb," and he's kind of just a glorified Uber driver throughout this entire project. Like he
Yeah,
doesn't do much like ass kicking or anything like that. He just is transporting, and it's just like it's nice that we have another character that you recognize from Star
that
Wars.
should be a Deepa award where like we have the extended cameo, but that's like a good award. We should have like the extended cameo that's like a bad award, and it's like you're
Worst
like
extended cameo,
it's like you're the Uber driver.
useless extended cameo.
Yeah. Or like, no, but what did you just say about the Uber driver?
He's glorified,
Yeah, a glorified Uber driver, Deepa Award winner, Zeb
right?
potentially.
Yeah, so he's in this movie. Um, Martin Scorsese. Before we get to, I mean, speaking of, I mean, we'll get to
Cameo.
Pedro Pascal in a sec, but I want to talk about Scorsese. Scorsese as like a vendor in like that Blade Runner esque world that's like kind of reminiscent of New York City. I know Blade Runner's LA, isn't it?
Yeah, LA.
Yeah, but, like, to have Scorsese as, like, a vendor, fast talking dude, jittery, I thought that was fun, to have him there, and for him, I think he did a nice job. He's pretty good, and he's increasing the amount of roles that he does between, like, the studio. I think it was just an outcome. I haven't seen that movie yet, but him in this movie shows, like, him and George Lucas must be boys. Like, he's like, and he must adore, like, what Lucas did for him to even, like, consider showing up in this movie, and he wants to flex his acting chops more and more. But his comedic timing is actually pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
yeah,
thoughts?
and I think I think, it's telling where, like, the movie's like, the opening credits roll, and it's Pedro Pascal 1, Jeremy Allen White, the 2nd name. I forget who's 3 and 4. It's not Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney
No
Weaver was
names.
last at, like, 8th. I think it was only 8 people on the billing, which is, like, really low. Martin Scorsese was 5th. He was the 5th
Yeah,
billed name in this movie
and he's
the opening,
barely in it.
and he's barely in it. That
It
shows you the
can be.
lack of humans in this, the smaller cast. Like it's shocking. It's really is shocking.
And speaking of people that weren't on set, let's talk about Pedro Pascal. Um, Pascal. What was so amazing about the credits is that when you had the
Post credits.
list, the post credits, and you're looking at the actors that are listed, it goes Pedro Pascal, and the next guy listed is the guy who actually wore the suit in all the stunt sequences. This is like, talk about. I think this guy is going for the, talk about like, yeah, this movie's going to get nominated for visual effects like any Star Wars movie would, but we're going to get a stunt award at the Oscars next year, right? Do you think that kind of plays a role that the next guy listed was the guy in the suit doing the stunts for the Mandalorian and Grogu?
It doesn't start till 2028.
Ah, okay. But doesn't that
So
feel like, hey, we're shouting out the guys who was actually here? And when I saw that, it made me feel like Pedro Pascal was not on set very much. If the second guy in the post credits listed for the cast is the guy who's in the suit.
yeah, it tells me three things. One, Pedro Pascal was barely on set. It really does. It tells me he was barely there. Two, I love the recognition for this guy because you know what? He wasn't probably this movie was all action set pieces. He was probably in it more than Pedro Pascal for sure, right?
The opening credits at the game, the names that you don't recognize are the guys that were in the suit, and we're gonna shout them out right now. So Din Djarin shares physical suit duties with Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder. Those are two names you didn't recognize that come before Martin Scorsese. Those are the guys in the suit, and they're actually in the cast. I've never seen that before, like that
Yeah,
high up.
I love it. I love it. Just because it goes to my third point. This also showcases the lack of development with the character in the movie,
Right.
right? It goes to show that Pedro Pascal has to have barely been there. The fact that these guys were so prominent and so important, and they're not even actors, that they're being second billed in the post credit, and then it just leads to the lack of development in the movie and just where this movie was lacking.
Mhm. Just great job by them. I'm just so proud. I'm so proud of those guys because they did the most of the heavy lifting and they're getting the credit for it. Pedro Pascal is doing like the press and has to do that stuff. He does lift his mask up. Mandalorian, every season at one point, you're going to see Pedro Pascal's face. You get it in the movie, facing the Hutts, facing the twins. And I think he did a good job. But my thing is, if he rarely takes off his helmet, how is his hair so short and his mustache so perfect? Like to me, if the Mandalorian, I know you're selling a movie, you got a movie star, he's got to look perfect, but the Mandalorian should have a patchy beard. He should have hair and a mullet coming out the back a little bit, but just enough so you can't see it through the helmet. I think that he should be a little bit, scraggly looking. I know the Mandalorians are like they're organized and everything like that, but it's just weird when he takes off the helmet. It's just like a perfect face, you know?
Yeah, no, they were never going to do that with Pedro Pascal,
Yeah,
but
no, you can't
yeah,
do it.
you're also right where he would be all scruffy, he would be sweaty, it would be disgusting.
And that scene when he goes into the pit, because he does a little bit of like physical work in that scene. When he's even speaking to the Huts, I thought he did a good job. I'm like, he's really taking this seriously, and I felt like he is embodying, even if he's not in the suit, he's just doing the voice like in a couple other scenes. Like he is embodying Din Djarin in this moment. And when he goes down below, what I liked is that he's taken out these different creatures. I don't know how he got a hold of a weapon. Like he just randomly found it inside that water pit
Yeah,
type of
no, like, that
situation.
was a flaw. He got a
I was
gun
like,
afterwards,
all of a
yeah,
sudden,
I was
yeah,
like,
and then
"That
he
was a
had like
flaw."
a pitchfork type of thing. But what I liked in terms of detail, when he is sent into the water, he just keeps sinking and he has to crawl his way to the top because the Beskar steel is so heavy. I thought that was a nice little detail instead of him just floating up just like anybody else would. The fact that it shows the weight that the Mandalorian is carrying every time he's fighting, why he moves so slow compared to like other people that you've seen in Star Wars. That was a nice little detail. And it led to a pretty cool scene. The CGI of that dragon thing was a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, but I thought it was better than the freaking pit
Yeah, it was better than that.
and the huts. Like, I think the
The
CGI of the pit
daylight,
was
when you do it
better.
in daylight for some reason, it just throws everything off, or just in bright lights.
Yeah, like, it's in the hut pit. or the Hut
Yeah.
Pit. Yeah, not the Gladiator Pit, the Hut Pit. Just have it be dark and help yourselves out.
Yeah. No, 100%. But any other thoughts on, Pascal here? He's a guy who said that he'll play the Mandalorian for as long as they make the projects. I don't blame him because obviously he wasn't there for too long. That was like the running joke, but then when you see the credit being given to the guys in the suit, it makes you realize it's not just a joke anymore. He literally wasn't there.
Yeah, no, how the I think, have fun playing him on the small screen. I think that's what it's gonna be. He'll still get a nice paycheck, but, I'll tell you this, he needs Doomsday to hit. I think, I think just for him to be an A-lister, I think that's the last test. If he can't carry his weight in that movie, then I think he's not an A-lister, and then that would be confirmed. He's a TV star that could be in smaller movies or be supporting in big movies. Like, he would have been good as the Brolin character in Weapons. He was good in Eddington, but small movie and supporting again. But he is not a lead actor, for a big movie or important movie. Like, he's just not.
Yeah, but they did go out of their way to kind of show it is Pedro Pascal. Was that because they
Because of
needed
the
Pedro
charm and
Pascal?
looks of him.
Right. Gotcha. And
Like,
because
he's
there's
gonna
just
be in
been
that
enough
Tony
rumors.
Gilroy musician movie, and that's gonna be a small movie. I think if he does well in that, and that's this year, if he does well in that smaller scope movie, it's gonna be really focused on him. Um, I think that's he's a good actor, legitimately good actor that can lead a small movie. But like, can he be Mr. Fantastic? Can he lead a huge ensemble? I still have my question marks around that.
I think I do too, and especially after Fantastic Four did not do well, and people gave him a lot of flack for how he portrayed, like, Reed Richards. He's gonna get a chance at redemption with Doomsday. He might not be the guy. He still has more to prove. Maybe we anointed him too early. Um, Other things I wanna mention before we get to scores. I was a little bit nervous that Grogu they like, Star Wars would not learn, Favreau would not learn from, like, this season 3 reception that we can't use Grogu as just a cute creature because he had so many cute moments. My favorite moment personally is when he tied the steel on his chest, his armor, and he tied it. Then he's, like, ready to go into battle, like, really cute. But other cutest moment is when he puts the medicine inside of Mando and then goes and curls up next to his like arm. And I was just like, damn, that's like a father going into the arms of his like dying, a child going to the arms of their dying father. Like that was,
Big boy
I heard
literally
it
gave
sniffle,
out in the theater. Big boy literally gave out an audible "aw."
but like the people I think were like almost on the verge of crying because just of the overweighing emotion. I thought that was like a really cute scene, but I was nervous they weren't going to let him use the force. I still think they could have done more. Honestly, they give him those 20 minutes to take care of Mando to show like, oh, I can take care of my dad just like he takes care of me and things like that. But him using the force at the beginning, dismantling the droid, okay, used it right off the bat, and then they don't use it forever, and then you have to kind of wait for him to use it against to lift up Rod of the Hut, from that hut pit. And then I thought you could have used a little bit more of he's not here just to sell toys. He's not here just to look adorable. I thought they could use a couple more force scenes.
Yeah, the Force scenes felt like they were, "Hey, like, don't forget he has the Force." The problem is just they felt like that, and also, like, in the show, every time the Force is used in the show, at least in season 2 and 1, it was like, "Oh my god," it was a huge moment, and you could
Yeah.
feel the music, like, build up while he's, like, has his hand out and eyes closed, and he's about to use the Force, and they're trying to say, like, "Oh, he's about to use the Force, this is a big moment," but it didn't feel big. So, I think that's a huge issue with that character going forward and the way that they're showcasing this character, but let me spin this a little bit with a positive. You besides maybe the action scenes with, Mando, this was the most successful part of the movie, was the solo mission here, was the solo episode, however you wanna describe it, Grogu caring for Din. Because we've never seen him, like, shown that independence. We Again, this could have been a special edition on Disney Plus or its own episode on as a Mandalorian, but it's a part of the movie, so we go with it. But it shows the most development with our core characters, one of our 2 core characters in the movie, our most important development, right? And this movie, again, we know Grogu has been like their apprentice for Mando. And like me, I want to see him with a lightsaber. I want to see this character develop into something more, right? Than just a Mandalorian, no offense. But we're gonna be with this character for a while because Din's going to die. They will continue to do the Mandalorian, whether it's big screen, small screen, whatever, and he's gonna die. Pedro Pascal is gonna say, "I'm done with this character. Kill me now," right? And then Grogu, they're not gonna give that up. Like they said in the movie or show, he's gonna live for centuries beyond Din. So we're going to see Grogu grow up at some point, similar to like we've seen Groot grow up. We're going to see that story some way, and this is the start of that. So I'm happy at least we got something with Grogu besides him being the cute guy on Din's shoulder. I'm just happy we got something, and that's why I think like we needed to see it in this movie in some capacity. I didn't think it was going to be an episode, basically like 20-25 minutes in the movie. I thought it was going to be spurts or the ending or something. So I'm happy with it.
I thought it was successful, and I think I was reminded of actually like I was reminded of 100 different movies here. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and Tom Cruise was explaining how the submersion scene was built like a silent movie. It was built like there's no dialogue. You're gonna watch and be on the edge of your seat, and you're gonna watch the wonder of like this action sequence. And I was thinking, this movie, you devote 20 minutes towards this. This is 20 minutes towards Grogu, that he doesn't have to rely really on Mando whatsoever. He does have to rely on another character that they introduce vaguely, but he is going to have the show, and you're going to have to, just like you're showing off the spectacle in Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, you're showing off like this performance by a puppet, like this, not, it's not physical, but it's like this, not effect, but it's like this work that's being done on this movie. Like watch, like this is why it also felt like a little bit like a love letter and appreciation, for animatronics, for the puppetry and things like that. Like watch what we can do. And in that case, I thought that was pretty successful, and it helps that he's so cute. I thought, like, I don't know, is that a weird thing? Didn't you feel
No,
like it
no,
was a little bit
like you
showing
could feel the
appreciation?
Empire Strikes Back Yoda in this. You could feel
And
it
he grabs the stick in that moment. He's
in like
trekking
the
through,
swamp area.
and people were digging it. It did slow down the pace big time of the movie, but I was okay with it. I felt
There was
like
already
the
pacing
other
issues.
yeah, there was other pacing stuff where I was just like the exposition stuff, and then it's like, okay, go on another adventure, another exposition thing, go on another adventure. Felt very choppy. In that moment, it totally brings the movie to a screeching halt, but I was okay with it because of what we got.
Yeah, I am as well.
You want to go to scores?
Sure.
What do you give The Mandalorian and Grogu?
This is a tough one, man. I enjoyed myself, but I got to be honest, like there wasn't a story, like there wasn't. So I need to be true to the score. So even though I enjoyed it, I've told myself since the last Fast and Furious movie, I'd be more true to scores. I'm giving this a 55.
Yeah, so I'm torn on this because, I mean, I thought I was going to be lower than you, because I think walking out of the theater, I was a little more critical. I think as a movie, it's not very good, but it's like as a summer blockbuster, type of project, I'm okay with it. Is it exactly what I want from a Star Wars movie? No. So I'm gonna go with a 57, you know? And I think that the next question we logically should go to is, what happens next with the character? Is there gonna be another movie, or is it already predetermined that this is gonna be, or is this destined for a season 4?
Destined back to the television. I think this movie again, like was a referendum on Star Wars. It really was. Like this movie, whether this was the season 4 and written into the movie, it was, I won't say it was doomed, from the start, but it shouldn't have been a movie. And it feels like a TV show. And they clearly are receptive to audience feedback, as in season 3, and with the specific stuff around the dark saber and the man and a Mandalore and whatnot. That was not in the movie, right? In a Mandalorian movie, and that was like the core to the character. We didn't see it. So they're clearly receptive to the audience. And the audience right now is saying this felt like a TV show. This does not feel like Star Wars on the big screen. That tells me they're going to move this back to the small screen. So I think you didn't feel the stakes in this movie. You didn't. And I talked about there's no story. So put this back on the small screen. It's fine for the small screen. Don't put this on the big screen again. It doesn't. And again, the box office does not give it. Is not saying this can make a boatload of money for us. You know, this is doing solo numbers. That's not good enough for Star Wars on the big screen. So no, this is TV.